I hope you have been enjoying the Timeless Education meeting recordings. I find it a lot easier to like talk when I am able to bounce off certain ideas and topics with other people. Of course, it can still get a bit messy and go out of topic, but I much prefer it to just sitting like this and trying to talk out my ideas. Or, well, you can hear I struggle to really just sit and talk about things. It's far superior to simply write things down. So I consider everything that I have written down to be the most important things, whether it be in books and blogs. And I am still trying to produce things like that. I have stopped, as you may have noticed. I haven't really updated much on the website. Well, I have made updates, but I haven't written new articles and things like that. Because I got stuck on one, a big one. And often the things that I'm trying to produce or make are so big that they take a lot of time and require research. And then I also want to put them out in a specific order, which can make things slow down. Like, I need to get this done before I do this or that, which makes things come out very slowly. So yeah, and I know that if I practiced, if I did this every day or something like that, I would get used to it. But I don't want to, like, there's not much I have to practice my rhetoric on, because a lot of the things that I'm interested in is in researching things and refining things, and that feels like it's just like a waste of time. I would rather produce high quality content than just making videos for the sake of constantly putting out videos. So I will continue to release somewhat slowly, like a video a month or every other month, or a timeless education meeting and so forth, because I find that to be less stressful. And also, in the beginning, for the first 3 years, I did a lot of content. I wrote a lot of scripts and recorded them. And recording scripted videos are a lot more exhausting, even if they are usually better in the end result. It's difficult to memorize, and I prefer not to show my face. And whenever I do show my face, I have to memorize part of the script. And when I do that, I end up looking kind of stiff, because I'm so focused on memorizing and saying things accurately that there's like no room for movement, or it's very difficult to do many things at the same time. Not that I'm perhaps necessarily very expressive even when I sit down and talk like this, but it's still, it looks more natural and a bit better. Not that this feels natural. I don't think this is natural to sit down and talk in front of, an empty chair. There's like no audience, no one to like respond to what I say. So because of that, like I said, it's a lot easier to make these recordings with people. And like I said, I was doing a lot of content in the beginning, and that kind of burned myself out a bit. And then once I started to get a lot of subscribers and the channel started taking off, I had exhausted myself, so that I really wanted to find some way to get more content out quicker, which would be then to just talk without a script. But the result isn't quite as good. And I do think that it's more important to produce things that I think, there are things that I want to get out that I think are important or interesting. And for that, I need to do scripted videos. And that will take time. Like I said, they are so big sometimes, the projects, that they will take a bit of time to make. And also I want to put them out often in a specific order. I've had this long-term plan, which I've mostly been following, but sometimes the things come up, and you discover things, or things are happening around the world that you want to. I don't think you can follow a plan rigidly. You have to be flexible, and so I've sometimes done things that I didn't expect to do, and like the recent evaluation of Ted Kaczynski and his manifesto. Someone a while back asked me about that, or if I read that or suggested it, and it was over a year ago, I think, and I didn't expect to actually ever do an evaluation of that. But then, Giancarlos brought it up, and I had also watched this video on YouTube, and I hadn't really memorized it, so I watched it again. But I figured that, since this is happening right now, maybe I can do an evaluation and do it in like a conversation. And of course, it didn't become quite as structured as it would if I had done it like a scripted video or something like that. But I wasn't really interested in doing that either. And so, but still, that was, I think, an interesting thing to try. So I like to experiment, and will probably continue to experiment while I still plan for those important things that I want to get out there. But I want to comment on some things that were brought up in the last meeting. After the meeting ended, we continued talking, and Christian asked me why I was laughing at one point in the video, when he had said that, going into the mental world could be risky and scary. And I was thinking that, I didn't really understand what he was saying or relate to it. And I was going to interfere, but I started laughing because I felt that you guys are defending the sort of NPC status quo, don't think too much position. Whereas my teaching is all about, questioning and self-knowledge and going into the mental world more, in the sense of, it depends on what you mean. And I think that we should have gone more into some kind of example, and I asked him about it later, and this is what he tried to explain to me. When I said that the mental world can be dangerous to travel, it's a little more personal to me, and I should have elaborated. But I have a fear of accidentally deluding myself or believing in bad ideas that could have bad consequences. Also about how questioning can lead to you having to let go of ideas you believe and having to search for new ones. But then I thought about how truth is more important, and that how can I delude or deceive myself or be deceived by others if I'm questioning and focusing on the truth or what's true? So yeah, I don't really know if it's related to type. It probably is. There may be something with the whole Gratum influence there, where this desire to, I don't know. There's an anxiety in the limbic system, the source of emotions. But and another thing that came up was Giancarlos was talking about serial killers like the Night Stalker or Richard Ramirez, who, people like that do differ from NPCs or people who don't question anything, in that they have gone into the, I guess you could call it the mental world, or like they have done reflection, and it's basically philosophy, even if it is, a kind of poor philosophy or incomplete philosophy. When one of the things that I said to him afterwards was that when you don't have a proper wise education then in society, then people are kind of left on their own, and some people will not question at all and just go along with things, and others will come to their own conclusions, which will often be incomplete and very sort of one-sided, and focus on just the bad things, or come to conclusion that human beings are fundamentally evil, like Richard Ramirez did. He said that he was evil and that people are evil, and that society is hypocritical. I guess he used that as an excuse to just go out and kill people and do whatever he wanted, which might give the impression that doing philosophy can be harmful and dangerous, but that is something that is without guidance, without proper guidance, and which is incomplete. Similar to the dark night of the soul, or the beginning of these steps of development, which I have sometimes referred to, like in the model of the wandering shapes. It starts with naivety, and then you get kind of hurt by the world, and you realize that things are problematic, and then you want to do something about that, and that can turn you into a monster. And some of these people, like school shooters and mass murderers or serial killers and things like that, even if they can have very compelling philosophies where there seems to be some kind of truth to it, like humans are fundamentally evil, like people will never develop a paradise. Yeah, I mean, that is partly true, but it's still only part of the truth, because people are also good. In the same way that people are more bad than you might think sometimes, they can also be more good than you may have thought, more compassionate and helpful and so forth. And so once you realize that you have been kind of wrong, and that even the dark aspects of life are transient, you realize that you should come to a conclusion that you have to give up a little bit, and then I guess a longing, if this is developed properly in you, a longing to get back on track and continue to experience life in more aspects than just the bad that you have been so obsessed about, will lead to better balance, and then you will, with this experience, be able to develop a more healthy philosophy, and so forth. So I don't consider, even if some people arrive at very dark conclusions about reality by being more introspective or philosophical, I don't think that that is an argument against the fact that it is still better than not questioning things at all, than simply going along with prevailing dogmas and not thinking and things like that. But it differs according to types, and we need to be more authentic and open and honest about these things, and not just put a lid on them. Like when people are just being completely judgmental and like don't listen to those serial killers, or just shut them down. I mean, I understand why people might want to do that, but at the same time, I do believe if you can understand them, you can also begin to see the flaws in their philosophy, and then you can confront that. And I still believe in confronting bad ideas with better ideas, with higher ideas, with more experience, with more wisdom and things like that. But everything requires thinking and questioning, and even religion is religion is not really religion without your own understanding of things, your own awareness of why you do the things you do, when certain virtues, when certain religious or spiritual behaviors are just done automatically, habitually, like you're kind habitually because you're trying to be religious or spiritual, or you're trying to be loving habitually, then some people will just take advantage of you, or you will still not feel that sense of substance because you're not really in contact with it. When things start to become too automatic, and that is why, in order for something to be real, it needs to be embodied and understood by yourself and living. So even if you still stay with like the same religion or whatever philosophy, you still need to understand it from a conscious level, so to speak. So you know why and how you're doing it, and not being lost in this kind of habitual, lazy approach to things and to life, which I regard as lower on these levels of consciousness, where people will adopt something that sounds true enough, like certain modern day political movements, and often there is a truth to it, that there is something absurd about borders and racism and the nation state. When you think back on a time when people were hunter gatherers and they moved around, there weren't such things back then, and then you can come to the conclusion that we can do without it, and that may be true. But if you approach that by just adopting ideas and not thinking about it enough, about the problems that may arise, then you might make a fool of yourself, or you might damage the reputation of certain movements. So if we take borders, for example, I do believe that borders will eventually disappear by themselves, but that is the key point. When borders no longer are necessary, they will disappear by themselves. But trying to get that to happen before people are ready, before people are wise enough, before society and circumstances have evolved to a point where they really are unnecessary, they will continue. It would just be counterproductive. So it's important to have patience with the world, even if we might want the world to be utopian or whatever right now. There's a process which we cannot really change, and so we have to do the best that we can at the moment. So as important as I sometimes stress on this idea that we also need to facilitate a good society to improve the chances that more people will become developed or wise or sane, or whatever word you want to choose. It is also important to understand that there has to be a balance between that, so that we don't count too much on that either, just as we don't count too much on people being able to develop themselves in a society where development is not encouraged or facilitated properly. So that's the big problem. That's the issue. That's why I'm doing this, and why I hope or think you are interested in this, because you want to, you feel that something is, I don't know, wrong, and you wonder what to do. What is it you really want? What is it that is the best thing for human beings? And like I've said before, or the conclusion I have arrived at is that it is to take in experience, because if you don't have much choice in what you experience, then trying to find creative ways to work with that and to experience that will give you a sense of substance, even as you try to express things, in that confrontation with things that are wrong. You cannot simply lose yourself, but you have to experience even that in kind of like a positive term, like the fact that I have something to fight against should give you a sense of meaning, rather than getting lost in this idea that nothing has meaning until something has been achieved. To not be so goal focused, but more process focused, that the substance and satisfaction, and I guess joy and happiness, is in the actual process. So I guess, I mean, sometimes people ask me or give some kind of hints to where they are a bit perhaps confused or want to know more clearly what is the point of what I'm trying to teach. And the point, I mean, part of the point is that to me, this is a way for me to have something to do, for me to fight and struggle and see what happens. Like, it is a process in itself in many ways. I mean, there are certain, I guess I would call them hard conclusions that I don't see changing, which I often return to, and even though they might sound a bit esoteric and so on, I do think that if you read what I've written, it is easier to follow my train of thoughts rather than when I'm trying to speak like this. Like I've said, it doesn't come very natural. It's not very pleasant, or even fun. Much more fun if there was someone else here to discuss this with. And I've sometimes been thinking of doing some kind of debate with someone, but I think that if I ever was involved in a debate with someone, it would mostly consist of me asking questions and trying to listen to what the other person says, because I'm not really the kind of person to sit to try and push my ideas on people. I don't really, it's not really in my nature. I find it very hard to like speak or try to see much point in getting my own ideas out. It is much more natural to me and in line with my energies to try to understand things, to discover things. And then, to the extent that I also have this desire to share things, because I do have that, I don't feel that works very well verbally, but perhaps more through some other type of expression, like the written word, or perhaps some kind of art expression of art, or things like that. So yeah, I would like to experiment a bit more with that as well, and perhaps going forward, go into a little bit more of why this matters to me, and like what the important aspect of each subject or part of timeless education, why it matters to me, and why I'm doing that particular thing. So yeah, that was just a kind of an update that I wanted to do here while it is summer and it's pretty warm. So it is a bit more difficult to work and even to think, even though thinking comes much more natural to me than doing certain things. Like I'm constantly thinking. I don't even have to try when it comes to thinking. But when it comes to actualizing certain projects, even when I really want to do them, it can be difficult to take that first step towards doing things. But so far I have been doing the things that I set out to do, even if it's going slowly. But in many ways it's good that things are moving slowly, but because I also know that there are things that I did in the beginning that would have been better if I had waited doing them. And then there are things that I'm doing now that I feel that, yeah, I'm glad I didn't do this earlier, because now is the best time. And perhaps these things would even become better if I did them later. But we don't have all the time in the world. And yeah, I do want to get things out there. Sometimes it's better to even get certain half completed things out there than not getting them out at all. as long as they benefit certain people or can be of use to further improve those things. Yeah, a lot of this that I'm talking about might sound a bit vague. I'm often talking in a way that I assume that people have been following me and are somewhat familiar with my ideas and things like that. And that's why when we have done these timeless education meetings, we haven't really been introducing things. We have been talking about things with a certain assumption that people will know a little bit about, for example, these types and things like that. But I think that moving forward, we should perhaps talk about things a bit more thoroughly. And I've been thinking that another thing that has come up is that these meetings have been very long and they've been very exhausting. That perhaps doing meetings around smaller subjects or smaller parts might be better. Because there's no it's unnecessary to run out of things if we just talk about things, cover too much right away. It's always nice to have content to put up, so doing smaller bits is also useful for that. You can split things up and then add more things more often rather than having a really long video every month or every other month. There's a lot of interaction now on Skype because of these meetings that if you want to partake in these meetings, just let me know, and we can have you on together for conversations. We don't really have another one planned right now, but we will continue to have these meetings, and so it would be interesting if more people showed up. And you don't have to participate in every meeting, but if there is a particular topic you would be interested in partaking in, then we can get you on board for that, and so on. So yeah, that's just consider this video kind of like an update, and hope you are hanging in there in this crazy time we are in right now.